Alright, man, peace. So, as most of you brothers know who've been following this television show Undisputed, featuring Mr. Shannon Sharpe, the former superstar tight end of the Denver Broncos and Baltimore Ravens, as well as Mr. Skip Bayless, the media member who has followed and stalked many of the most prominent sports figures of the last 45 years, they've pretty much been able to build up this shtick of being the #1 LeBron James fan versus the #1 LeBron James quote-unquote hater. And they tried to convert that energy over into other arguments involving Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, etc. Shannon Sharpe first came into notice as a debater in a guest appearance that he made on the previous show that Skip Bayless was the lead debater on, called First Take on ESPN, which currently co-stars Mr. Max Kellerman, as well as, of course, the lead figure currently on the show First Take, Mr. Stephen A. Smith. When Shannon Sharpe made his guest appearance on First Take, Skip Bayless took note of the fact that Shannon bragged about how the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to defeat the Golden State Warriors. I believe that in the episode that Shannon was featured in, or basically he made his guest appearance in because Stephen A. Smith was absent that day, the Cavaliers were down 3-1 at that moment, or down 2-1 at that moment, if my memory serves me correct. Either way, that was the first inkling that Skip Bayless had, that wow, I could potentially use this person as my counterpart when I move off of ESPN. Because that's how Skip thinks, and that's how all people with a ruling class mentality think. They're operating 3-4 steps ahead. Well, just to bring the story forward, as we know, they've been on the air for 4 years. Shannon has been bragging about LeBron James being the quote-unquote GOAT for at least the last 2.5 to 3 years. And now finally he's able to revel in the fact that his boo thing, the apple of his eye, LeBron James, has finally been able to win a championship. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Let's get to the game, guys. Let's talk about everything that we just saw, because the Lakers are champions again, and they handled business Game 6, cruising to a 106-93 win.
LeBron James is very shrewd. He understands that the key to him being able to catch Michael Jordan in overall championships is this young dude right here, Mr. Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is beyond a shadow of a doubt the greatest thing to ever happen to LeBron James's career, not only because of his talent level, but also because of his personality. Anthony Davis is a go along to get along type, and you need those type of people in your life as long as they're very talented. I say that because for the most part, the only way that you're going to be able to maintain a successful relationship that's mutually beneficial is if one or both of the parties involved in that relationship have that go along to get along personality or mentality or approach to life. There has to be at least one person who's looking at the bigger picture and is willing to humble themselves. And Anthony Davis has shown that he is consistently willing to humble himself to LeBron, who can be an overbearing personality type. We know that LeBron is lustful for attention. He is a narcissist. Anthony Davis appears to be the opposite. And as they say, opposites attract. Once again, though, LeBron knows that he needs Anthony Davis to maintain his relevance in the NBA. Had they not been able to pull off the Anthony Davis trade with New Orleans, I guarantee you that LeBron would have been contemplating retirement, because no other star in the NBA wanted to play with him.
Game that was never in doubt. It's the Lakers' 17th NBA title and LeBron's 4th.
Now, supposedly this hand sign right here has pissed off one of the Chicago gangs, or the Midwest gangs, I should say, the Gangster Disciples. Because allegedly, LeBron James has been flashing this hand sign to show his affiliation with one of the counterparts of these gangs, that being the Gangster Disciple Killers, if I'm not mistaken. One of you brothers who are from the Midwest and is more familiar with the dynamic that's going on there can correct me or inform me. But allegedly, the Gangster Disciples are upset with LeBron James because he kept flashing his hand sign in the midst of the NBA playoffs to show that he was on Michael Jordan's ass. Because allegedly, the Gangster Disciples have associated themselves with Jordan in various ways, with their color scheme and also with the wearing of his Bulls jersey, so on and so forth, or the wearing of the Jordan apparel. So allegedly, this is a hand sign, I think it's called raking, or the rake hand sign, that the Gangster Disciple Killers use to show that they're at odds with the Gangster Disciples. So since Jordan is associated with the Gangster Disciples in a roundabout way, LeBron has decided that he's going to associate himself with the Gangster Disciple Killers. At least that's how it's been interpreted by the Gangster Disciples from what I understand. Now, in my view, it would not surprise me at all if this is just another hand sign that's associated with higher levels of Masonry, Luciferianism, and the Kabbalah that many of these gangs might be misinterpreting as an attempt by LeBron to associate himself with gangs, because as I've stated in previous videos, all gangs are low-level Luciferians. That's why they use similar hand gestures, motions, signs, etc. They're low-level Luciferians / low-level Masons who many times don't understand what their grips and what their handshakes and where their gestures come from. Could LeBron be associated with the quote-unquote Gangster Disciple Killers? Possibly. Who knows? He's from the Midwest. Maybe he is. But if I were to be a betting man, I would say that the reason why he's throwing up this hand sign is because it has a level of high Kabbalistic relevance in witchcraft / Masonry, just as much as or more than the potential for it to be associated with any level of gang life. But who knows?
LeBron finished the game with 28 points, 14 rebounds, 10...
Supposedly that's called the rake hand sign.
On his way to winning his 4th Finals MVP. Shannon, how impressive was this, LeBron?
And any of you brothers that are associated with any of those gangs, you should be leaving those gangs and becoming a productive member for your quote-unquote community, as opposed to trying to kill one another. It is what it is.
He was simply great. There's no other way around it. There's no other way to describe it.
LeBron James was okay in the finals. I mean, when you watch NBA basketball today, it looks like an AAU tournament. It's just a bunch of little boys running around, standing outside the three-point line. One guy is allowed to dribble, and if he beats his man off the dribble, he gets right to the cup. No one can stop penetration anymore because everyone's trying to stretch the floor. So how impressive are his numbers really? That's why you can't compare the numbers that he compiles to someone like a Michael Jordan. Because Jordan was averaging 30, 35 points a game in the playoffs at a time period where you had the 4 and the 5 man guarding the paint. So that's why he had to master the fadeaway and the mid-range. LeBron can still be relevant into his 17th year because he knows he can get to the basket pretty much with impunity.
He was magnificent.
And the real MVP of this series should have been Anthony Davis. He was by far the most impactful player. And the second most impactful player was Rajon Rondo. And you can argue that the third most impactful player was KCP. Even though I would give LeBron the slight edge over KCP. But when I'm talking about impact, when you talk about impact, Anthony Davis on offense and defense, as well as Rajon Rondo, were the two most impactful players in the series for the Lakers. LeBron put up a lot of garbage points to get his overall series averages high enough to make it appear as if he was dominant.
This was a virtuoso performance for the entirety of the playoffs.
He played well in the playoffs, but we're talking about the finals.
In year 17, his 10th finals, he averaged 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists.
Oh, God.
For the entire,
how did he come up short?
For the entire, because he doesn't
he
stat
tried.
pad. Because he doesn't stat pad.
How could you sit there and say he doesn't stat pad when that's all he did for the entire series? The only game that he played where he came out from the jump being highly effective was one of the games that they lost, when Jimmy Butler actually outplayed him overall.
Fourth quarter last night, he was trying to get it up to the 10.
And guess what, Skip?
Hold up, Skip. Guess what? You're going to give my man credit today. You're going to give LeBron James and our family all types of credit today with your old ass. Why are you still alive, Skip Bayless? The COVID-19 pandemic is killing all kinds of old people. Your ass is still alive. Why?
What, he got November, he got December, he got plenty of time. He's made that abundantly clear. Now, this is what he was for these 6 games. 30, 12, 8.5 on 59% shooting, 40% from the three-point line. Is that good, Skip? That is magnificent. Player.
I say this repeatedly. I watched game 1 where Anthony Davis was dominating. The Lakers were up by about 25, 30 points. LeBron had something like 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Early in the third quarter, I went to sleep. I woke up the next day. They said this nigga had 25, 13, and 9. I said, what? Are you kidding me?
Lead their team in points, rebounds, and assists in the finals. LeBron James has done it 7 times. Tim Duncan has done it once, Magic once, Jimmy Butler once.
Let me say this. If you have to lead your team in points, rebounds, and assists that many years, that tells me that you need to have the offense totally based around you and what you do, and that your impact on your teammates is highly overrated, and that you have to have a direct association with your teammate and his level of success. That's why I always liken LeBron James to the comic book character Galactus. He's a dominant figure, but when he comes into your solar system, he's going to suck your planet dry and move along.
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler.
Let that sink
How did he get in that conversation?
That lets you know to lead your team in rebounds, assists, and points.
What that truly means is if you're averaging that many rebounds and you're a small forward and you can also lead the team in points and assists, you're probably playing in a small ball era. Larry Bird was a dominant rebounder when he wanted to be, but he also understood that he doesn't need to exert that much energy on the boards unless Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale are hurt, because you have to use your energy judiciously over the course of the game and over the course of the series. But in this era, especially when they're not testing for HGH and you can pretty much extend your career however you like, it's easier for someone like a LeBron James to average all these numbers. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him. He's a great all-time player. But back in the 90s and in the 80s, and cats who watch basketball at that time will tell you, if you were a small forward or a shooting guard, or much less a point guard, who was trying to average 10 rebounds a game, when you got into the locker room at halftime, your 4-man or your 5-man was going to look you in the face and say, nigga, what the fuck are you doing? I'm trying to eat. I get paid based on the amount of rebounds that I get because I have to feed my kids too. There was no way that a point guard was going to average 10 rebounds a game back in the 90s or in the 80s. I think the closest may have been Fat Lever or maybe Magic Johnson. They may have had some years averaging 7 or 8 rebounds a game. But in that era, you had guys who got paid based on the dirty work that they did. There are no real dirty work players in the NBA anymore because all they do is spot up for 3-point shots. So your tough guys today are players like a Jay Crowder. I mean, Jay Crowder would have probably came off the bench back in the 90s unless he would have developed his game more. Because basically all he could do is spot up for 3 or try to guard somebody. The NBA game is so specialized now that it's taken away a lot of the nuance. And because the nuance has been lost, so has a lot of the excitement.
There are bigs on the other team, like Magic had to worry about Kareem. And all these other guys have had bigs. But he says, you know what?
So LeBron doesn't have a big. LeBron doesn't have Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis on his team.
I got this. And last night, now I hate that Friday's night performance was squandered, but you saw from the opening tip, it wasn't going to be that type of night for the Heat. The Heat was done. You and I both knew that Jimmy Butler was not going to be able to replicate what he did Friday.
No.
And we knew Duncan Robinson wasn't going to be able to replicate what he did.
Jimmy Butler.
The real problem with the Miami Heat was that they would have needed huge contributions from players who were not ready, like a Tyler Hero. And I myself, before the series started, prognosticated that the Miami Heat would win in 7 games, assuming that there was no intervention or chicanery on the part of the league or the referees. But I figured that there would be. So in factoring that in, I also had the Lakers winning in 5 games. Well, due to the outstanding performances of Jimmy Butler, I believe in games 3 and 5, they were able to extend it 1 game beyond my prediction. But I have to give the Lakers credit because there really was not too much referee intervention in this series. But I do still hold on to the notion that had the Heat not lost 2 of their top 3 best players, they probably would have won this series in 7 games. I will say this though, due to this accolade, I now have to put LeBron James a slot above Larry Bird. He's now entering my top 5 all time. Just on face value, individual accolades, championships won, participated in, etc. I think that championships participated in start to matter once you've won more than other players on the all-time great list?
Tank was empty last night.
He was done. He was done. Skip. He averaged 25-10 in the finals 6 times. Everyone else has done it 5 times in history. Skip, they go down.
Right, but Shannon Sharp, do you play to win the game? This is the first player in the history of professional sports who's been lauded so much just for getting there and putting up big numbers. How come no one ever says this or makes this case for Jerry West, who will consistently average 30, 35 points per game in the finals? He had a finals in 1969, I believe it was, where he averaged over 40 points a game. Nobody talks about that. How come no one says, you know what, Jim Kelly is a top 3 quarterback of all time because he went to 4 straight Super Bowls? It's only with LeBron James that suddenly we're supposed to give him so many points or, so much praise for getting to the finals and what he's done there, supposedly. When I think back at his performances in the finals, I can think of very few that stood out when it came to his dominance in a winning effort. I'll give him credit for the last 3 games against Golden State in 2016 to a degree, even though a lot of their players started to go down. I thought that he was dominant in Game 1 in 2018. I thought that he stat padded the hell out of the finals in 2017. 2013, Ray Allen saved his ass. 2014 was a bit of a stat pad. He also quit once he saw how dominant San Antonio was. Other than that, I don't see him as being a great finals performer.
Bubble. And LeBron James made it abundantly clear that he was going down there for one purpose and one purpose only. And you cannot fault LeBron and the Lakers because they were able to maintain focus and other teams somehow lost their focus or started to fall by the wayside.
Yeah, Skip. I almost went down to the bubble myself to make sure that he was straight. You know what I'm saying? But Savannah said she got this. I said, okay, I'll stay home with the kids.
Having covered the games for over 40 years, so it's a long, arduous process. And sometimes guys start to fall by and guys get in trouble and guys get this and guys get that, and it costs their team. They were able to go down there, stay focused. It's not their fault that the Clippers couldn't remain focused. It's not their fault that Giannis couldn't get over the hump. It's not their fault. LeBron James.
I agree with all of that. LeBron was able to do something that he had to do. This was his year to win a championship. COVID-19 pandemic or not, this was his best last chance to win a championship, and he pulled it off. Great for him. This was important for his legacy because this is going to give him another feather in his cap to say, I've won a championship on 3 different teams. At least that's how it's going to be postulated by the liberal sports media that loves him so much. Supposedly that's a good thing. I'm not quite sure. Is it better to say that you've had 3 different wives and gone from wife to wife, or is it better to state that you've been able to make your relationships work over the course of your life with the same person or people, depending on how many wives you have? You tell me. If you constantly have to jump from situation to situation, that tells me that either you've been involved in some instabilities or you've caused them.
And Anthony Davis, and this was a total team win. And guess what, Skip? This is the first of many.
Yeah, Skip. Let me tell you, we're already planning for not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7. We're thinking about 14, 15 of these bad boys. You know what I'm saying, Skip Bayless?
Make some roster changes next year. We're going to be right back.
Oh, you're going to win.
Hell yeah. We're thinking about packaging Frank Vogel as well as Avery Bradley for Kevin Durant. How you like us now, Skip Bayless?
More? Did you just predict?
This is the first of many, which means they will get more than one. This is not the only one. Do you understand?
Why don't you go ahead and give the speech? Not 5, not 6, not 7. Go ahead. Go up to 8 or 9.
How about this here? Not one. Not one. More than one.
Yeah, Skip. We're thinking about 7, 8 of these bad boys. We heading for Bill Russell. Forget Michael Jordan. We trying to catch Russell. Russell got 11. We trying to get 12.
Is that your new microphone?
Yeah,
I like that. Your scepter.
Yep.
Is it my turn?
Your turn. Your turn.
Thank you.
Yes, old white man. You can talk now. Go ahead. While you talking, I'm going to go get me a sandwich.
Shannon Sharp.
Yes.
I have news for you. I am sorry to inform you, these championship rings should be made of cubic zirconia.
No, these.
Agreed, but you know what, Skip Bayless? Let LeBron and his fan base have their moment. They haven't had their moment in a while.
Yes. And on the inside of these rings should be a little inscription with an asterisk. Avoided Clippers. You avoided the one team that would have...
Did the Lakers really avoid the Clippers? Or did the Clippers avoid the big moment because they were scripted to avoid the big moment? Led by Mr. Luciferian himself, Doc Rivers. But that's a whole other video for another day.
You off. You avoided the team that the odds makers had as the favorites going into these pandemic playoffs. The one team that could have gotten you fell on its face because it was looking ahead to you.
Were they really looking ahead to the Lakers? Or were they looking at each other saying, I don't want to be here? Relationships can only work when both parties want to be there. When both parties want to make something work, it's going to work. And there was some resentment aimed towards the incoming talent over the duration of the season. No doubt about it. There was definitely some resentment aimed at Kawhi Leonard and Paul George by the cast of characters that was there from the year before, who for some strange reason thought that they were the culture establishers of that team. And I blame Doc Rivers for that. Because you have to take Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley aside and let them know, brothers, you guys are role players. You're never going to lead the team anywhere. It's like the difference between the Golden State Warriors, the We Believe Warriors from 2007, and the Strength in Numbers Warriors from 2016, 2017, etc. Like, that's a whole different level of competition and winning. The We Believe Warriors was a nice little story. The Strength in Numbers Warriors from 2014 to 2019, they were historic. So that's the difference. You cannot allow a low-level culture to dominate a winning culture or the potential for a winning culture. But the Clippers were very badly put together. They have no rim protector. They have no vocal leader. They never had a real point guard.
It's not. It was just meant to be. You got all the way to the finals, and you wind up facing a team that was an epic mismatch for you. I'm sorry, it just was. I enjoyed the Heat's run through the East. They were something. I'd never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah.
But when they ran into you, you had by far the two best players on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And the odds makers said you were a prohibitive favorite. And in game one, you went on a 77-32 run, and you exposed the Heat for everything they weren't.
Right.
They're just too little.
And too young. And they're very strangely put together themselves. I mean, they're going to have to get a major free agent either this offseason or next offseason because Jimmy Butler is not a young buck. He's not a spring chicken. So how long exactly do you want him to act as a steward over these 21 and 22-year-olds? You're going to have to package them in a deal for a superstar.
Starting center is 6 feet 9 inches tall. And Bam got hurt in game one, and he was never quite the same thereafter. He missed a game, then he came back and tried to play.
He played well last night, though.
He did okay, but he couldn't.
It was too late.
He couldn't defend. And speaking of too little, too late, speaking of little, your starting point guard, this guy named LeBron, is as tall as Bam and much bigger and stronger to me, much more physically developed than Bam is at his very young age. It's LeBron James at 6'9" versus Bam at 6'9". And remember, the Heat's leading scorer through the playoffs was Goran Dragic, and he gets hurt, and God bless him, he tried to tough it out and come back last night. It was sort of Alex Smith-like, if you will. Yeah. And he tried, and he was a shell of himself. But they wanted him because they loved him, and he's Jimmy's best buddy.
And they knew it was over.
And they knew it was over, so they said, let's just see what would happen. Maybe he'll give us a little kickstart.
I don't think they brought back Dragic because they knew it was over. I think they brought back Dragic because they were hoping that he would be able to provide a spark or a kick to help spell Jimmy Butler, who they were basically asking to do everything. And Jimmy Butler showed you the difference between a star player and a superstar player. Jimmy is a star player with superstar intangibles. So therefore, he doesn't have the motor to bring that level of offensive output every game in a big moment. He just didn't have it in him. He needed a lot of help. And he didn't even have the interest to try it. That's the difference. Jimmy knows that, he's a second banana, maybe even a third banana on a dominant team.
but he couldn't, and it's no surprise. So you got to play the 5th seed in the East. You got to play a team that the odds makers had in the preseason 75-1 to even get to the finals, making them the longest odds team to make an NBA Finals in the last 30 years since the stat was even kept.
Wow, that's interesting. So the Lakers officially played the easiest opponent in the finals in the history of the NBA. At least in the chronicled history of the NBA. I mean, hey, it is what it it is what it is. I just found it hilarious. This idiot Nick Wright said on TV that the Lakers defeating the Miami Heat allowed LeBron James to see how Michael Jordan felt when he got to play the Portland Trail Blazers in the finals. This attempt by LeBron James fanboys to try to diminish the competition that Jordan faced in the playoffs or in the finals is laughable to me. Jordan literally faced the #1 seed in the NBA Finals every season other than his first time in the finals, where they faced the Lakers, who were the #2 seed. There were no gimmies when Jordan got to the finals. This was a gimme for the Lakers.
You got to play a team that was down 2 of its best players and had to start and play high minutes. 3 rookies. 3, including Tyler Hero, who was the youngest player ever to play in an NBA Finals. And you step back and look at this. Well, it took 2 classic, all-time masterpiece aberration games from Jimmy Butler.
I wouldn't call them aberrations, especially when you do it twice. It's just Jimmy summoning energy that he was unaccustomed to summoning. Skip Bayless likes to promote Jimmy Butler as this player who's not a great scorer. Jimmy has shown over the course of his career that he can get buckets. I mean, that's how he got the nickname Jimmy Buckets. He can score in a great way when he wants to. I believe that he still shares the record for most points in a quarter as a Chicago Bull with Michael Jordan at 30.
For them to steal 2 games. I don't know how he did it, but he went for 40 the first night and 35 the next time, which was last Friday night. And I said, where did that come from? Because he's a 20-point-a-game average scorer. And what did he do in the other 4 finals games? He averaged 21 points. And last night he had 12 points because, as we just talked about, he was done. He was cooked psychologically, physically. He'd given all he could.
What did he play Friday? All but 40 seconds? That's asking a lot.
Okay, it's
on Friday when he went to the basket and somebody fouled him and he came all the way to the baseline and damn near collapsed. I said, this nigga's done. He's finished.
Too much. So I look back at all the breaks that you got. I promise you, the pandemic, as awful as it has been for all of us, including the Lakers, it was a huge break for your man LeBron. He was nearing the end of his 17th year. He'd been on a great run right up to the edge of the quarantine and the pandemic. And then he got almost 5 months off to heal up, rest up, and revitalize.
Let me ask you this. From what you saw leading up to the pandemic, did it look like he was slowing down or picking up steam?
He was picking up steam, but I dreaded, for his sake, trying to close out the season on that pace.
That's a good attempt at a counterpoint by Shannon Sharpe, but one could say the same thing about Kobe Bryant coming down the stretch of 2013. He was picking up steam as a player down the stretch of that season right before he tore his Achilles. So a lot of times, that's how great players, that's how they finally hit that cliff. They don't hit that cliff necessarily by having a gradual downturn or downtrend in their output. Many times it's just a cataclysmic injury that occurs.
In an MVP at age 35.
I told you that wasn't our focus.
Okay.
You know what our focus was. You know what it was.
Okay, but he wanted that badly. You know he wanted.
We wanted it with more.
Okay, you wanted the MVP
we
regular season, and you wanted the MVP.
It would have been nice to get both, no question.
Okay, so you're
Look, Skip, I don't understand why you trying to nitpick our accomplishments. Yeah, did we want the regular season MVP? Yeah, we did. We said, you know what? Okay, fuck it. Give it to that skinny nigga over there in Milwaukee. He can have that shit. We going down to the bubble to dominate the Black Lives Matter tournament. We love every minute of it, Skip Baylor. We love being black. We love living, and our life matters, Skip Baylor. We don't care what people say about that group being Marxist. So what? We Marxists too. Fuck it.
Who shares the Staples Center but lives in the basement, your Clippers, they needed reps, R-E-P-S reps, because they had brand new chemistry, and they were just starting to click before the pandemic hit also.
Well, from what I've been hearing, that wasn't going to help. They had more chemistry problems than reps.
Okay.
What they had couldn't be fixed on the court.
Okay, but you needed rest, R-E-S-T. They needed reps. You got it. They didn't.
And, let's be very clear about the Clippers. Because now, of course, due to the fact that they blew that 3-1 lead, they choked in an epic fashion. Everyone's going to try to focus on their chemistry issues. There have been plenty of teams that have won championships with terrible chemistry issues. So let's not quite go there. Am I saying that it had nothing to do with what happened? No, I'm not saying that. But that team was very poorly constructed. I understand why it was constructed in the way that it was, because you have to hold on to certain pieces just to provide the allure for Kawhi Leonard to want to sign there in the first place. But chemistry had something to do with why they flopped, why they failed, but not everything.
Sudden, LeBron could just kick back and relax and then take his team to what was like an AAU bubble where it's all basketball.
Agreed.
All the time, there's no distractions, and LeBron is tough enough mentally as a team leader to keep him focused.
That's not what I've been told. The reasons, but here's the problem that I have with what you just said. You said the Clippers were going to win the title because they were the more mentally tough team. Now, everybody knew at the beginning of the season that the Lakers had 2 of the top 5 players. LeBron.
Well, you're making some valid attempts at a counterpoint, Mr. Shannon Sharp, but here's the issue the Clippers had. Number one, their head coach was more infatuated with being woke and was having mental, psychological, and emotional breakdowns in the midst of the bubble, as was the supposed second best player on the team. The Clippers clearly were already fractured, and then you add on to it this George Floyd protest, the COVID-19 pandemic issue. These were things that pushed them over the edge. This is where LeBron James thrives, because he thrives in that petri dish of chaos. He loves chaos. He said it himself at one time. He said, I love chaos, because it makes him feel comfortable while others get exposed, because men, especially in their natural order, prefer order. They prefer order in their natural order. LeBron James likes chaos. He's an agent of chaos himself. That's why he's a usable pawn for the Democratic Party. But just getting back to the point, the Clippers were like a relationship that was on the rocks, where it's one more thing that happens and it's going to destroy the relationship. When Doc Rivers had his breakdown and he was more concerned with promoting the Black Lesbians Matter movement than being a real coach and making adjustments. When Paul George was talking like he was a superstar and wasn't producing, wasn't handling his business. When Kawhi Leonard showed that he has no leadership capabilities whatsoever, which we already pretty much knew. But also when he came up small when they needed him the most. That was pretty much all she wrote.
But that didn't matter because they were weak, and people kept saying, Charles Barkley and others said, AD didn't have that dog. LeBron is mentally weak. Now they go down to the bubble. Skip, it was so easy to be in the bubble. Why was everybody else cracking when they were thriving?
Because LeBron understood he had a great opening to go, if I may say, steal a ring. It's not stealing, it's just
simple as that. And I stated that before the season, that this was going to be LeBron's opening to quote-unquote steal a ring. Even before the pandemic shit and the protesting nonsense. But he's coming into the season paired with Anthony Davis, going up against a league where pretty much all the other top superstars that had championship experience were injured for the year, and his only competition was going to be Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. On paper, to me, the Clippers had a better formula for winning the NBA championship, but there were some mitigating circumstances that stopped that. Number one, if you don't have a real point guard who can distribute, you have to run an offense similar to the triangle. That means basically an equal opportunity offense that adapts according to how the defense is playing you. That means you have to develop a high level of chemistry. So you have to force Kawhi Leonard to participate in practice, and he is going to have to play more games. Doc Rivers was unwilling to do that, or maybe unable to do that. Who knows? But these are all things that started to manifest and show themselves in tense moments, in tense situations, especially the lack of continuity on defense. The Clippers were one of the top defensive teams in the league before the pandemic. So it's very strange the level of defensive problems that they had, and Doc Rivers' inability or lack of want to when it comes to providing some solutions to those problems.
He was golden. It's as golden as the gold on your robe or whatever this is.
You like that, Skip? LeBron paid for this. He said, baby, I'm so happy I won a championship. Let me give you a robe because you're a king. Just like Savannah's a queen. 2 kings and a queen living in a mansion. I love it.
Cloak. Your cloak.
Yes.
And LeBron seized a golden moment.
You see how they keep replaying LeBron James doing this rake symbol? That's how you know that for the powers that be behind the curtain, this hand sign represents something for them. Once again, the brothers who are a member of that gang, the Gangster Disciples, they interpret it one way, but they're low-level Luciferians. LeBron James is a high-level Kabbalist. I did videos showing his associations with certain rabbis in the past. They get taught these hand signs and their significance in a whole other way. So the reason why they keep showing this and replaying this is because they know that this was a part of LeBron's overall script. They had to have him win the championship, especially as a precursor to the release of Space Jam Part 2.
He said, let's max this out. Let's stay focused here. Half the Clippers didn't even want to go to the bubble.
So why
you know it and I know it.
So why didn't they max it out? They had the same opportunity.
Okay, maybe they lacked leadership. They didn't have a LeBron James because Kawhi's not that guy. I thought Doc could keep them together, but he couldn't keep them together, and because of that, he lost his job.
What you fail to realize, Skip, is that Doc wasn't the problem.
No, Doc was the problem. He provided terrible leadership. And Doc Rivers, when you evaluate his career carefully, since he's been allowed to coach in the NBA for the last 20 years, he's always showed poor leadership.
No problem with chemistry. They had no problem with leadership until they brought those 2 outsiders in that locker room.
Nonsense. They've always had problems with chemistry on the Clippers, dude. Read about Lob City. Just knock it off, brother.
Kawhi Leonard would rather play with Paul George and Pat Bell than AD and LeBron. And look what he got.
That's really what it's about. Like a bitch on her menstrual, you're still mad that Kawhi Leonard turned down your boy LeBron James. And let me say this, it was best for the NBA, for Kawhi, and for LeBron that Kawhi decided not to sign with the Lakers.
What if he watched that game last night from his palatial estate down in San Diego? Did he enjoy watching us celebrate?
Yeah, Skip Bayless, I wonder if he enjoyed his view as much as I did, laying there in our 4,000 square foot marble encased jacuzzi with 5 ladies to my right and 5 ladies to my left saying, go baby, go. Win a championship for your damn family.
He watched and laughed. That's what he did. He LOL'd the whole game because it was so embarrassing how much better your team was than the poor team that was put up against them.
You know what's embarrassing, Skip? They had a 3-1 lead and was up 19 and 16 points and couldn't finish
and
off
12
and could not finish off the Nuggets. That's what's embarrassing.
That was embarrassing. And the worst thing was watching Game 7 when the Clippers went up by 12 points and the Nuggets started to come back. You could feel the Clippers give up. Like, you could feel it. You could feel it through the TV screen that they were going to give up.
Ahead, we got them, we got them, we got them, and you don't got them.
And Kawhi had 2 points in the second half and went over in the fourth quarter. That's what's embarrassing.
Speaking of the fourth quarter, what was embarrassing to me last night is I was ashamed of your man LeBron James. It had to end like this.
Yep.
They were up 32 in the second half. They were up 29 going to the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And your man should have taken a bow and said, thank you very much. We got this.
He couldn't. He had to stat pad. He had to make sure that this fool could sit there and say, my baby averaged 31, 12, and 11 in the finals.
Nope.
He should have dropped the mic after 3 quarters. But what did he do? He kept on keeping on. He was playing bully ball all night because nobody on that team can stop him from getting to the rim. And why? Jimmy Butler kept insisting on, I got him, I got him. At least let Iggy take him for a while. At least let Jake...
Iggy been done. Iggy need to retire and go take his old ass somewhere.
Try a little bit. Jimmy Butler was done, but no, he's got to tough it out. He's got to show that he could go 2 ways. He can take LeBron on offense and take him on defense. And instead...
You mean Jimmy Jordan? You know how those Jordans are. They're very competitive.
It was a joke of a parade to the basket. The parade started last night, and I was ashamed for your man LeBron because
What you ashamed for?
he is hot dogging, he is showboating, he is front running.
Right, but that's how he is. That's why he has his fan base, and everyone outside of his fan base is able to look at him and see what he actually is.
He is just piling up the points.
Skip, for 15 years, your guy kept his tongue out of his mouth.
Yeah, but he didn't do this.
Right, but that has nothing to do with showboating, dude. Just knock it off. This nigga be trying so hard, and he's too old to be saying the stupid shit that he says in these Jordan versus LeBron conversations. That's how you know something happened between him and Jordan. Or he's upset at Jordan about something, but Shannon is a Marxist. So a lot of Marxists, particularly black Marxists, don't like Michael Jordan because the principle of Marxism is act like you're sympathetic to the plight of the poor if you happen to be a black Marxist who's rich. And if you're a black Marxist who's poor, just hate on people who work harder than you and who are more successful than you. So Jordan has set himself up to be a target for Marxists, especially black Marxists like Shannon Sharp.
Oh, he dunking on people and standing in their face.
Okay, how about this with 4 minutes to go, if we could see this? Your man dunks and slaps the backboard. You want to talk about rubbing it in? He slaps the backboard and gets a technical foul as he hangs on the rim.
Yeah, that was so stupid. And everybody knows that slapping the backboard is a technical. But he's a normal front runner.
Good. Way to go. Get him out, Frank.
No.
Where's Frankie V? Where's Frankie V? Get him out. Get him out. You cannot taunt this team like that.
Yes,
they
you can.
deserve better.
No, they don't.
Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra deserve better than that. They deserve more respect.
You told me
more respect.
You told me at the beginning of the series that there was bad blood between LeBron James and Pat Riley.
Okay.
So if there's bad blood, let it spill.
So
there
then-
will be blood.
So then...
This nigga Shannon is so stupid. Sitting there talking about, yeah, it's good. They do have bad blood between him and Pat Riley. So if the bad blood won't spill, let it keep spilling. Don't stop. Like Michael Jackson said, don't stop till you get enough.
It's like 2:29 left.
What did he do then?
Try this one out. Try this one.
What did he do, Skip?
He pulls up and takes a 30-foot three.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he make it?
And they're up 20 at this point, and he
Wow, did he really do that? I didn't even watch the last portion of this game. That's terrible.
says, watch this. And he pulls up, look at this, this is a logo three. I'm going to logo three.
That's what he does, though, when he knows the game is in hand.
You're going to rub it in with a logo three.
Yeah.
How aren't you ashamed of that?
This dude has no class whatsoever. Zero.
I am not ashamed.
You should be ashamed of that. And he should be ashamed.
Dude.
That's no way to end that game.
That is the exact way to end it.
And then finally, I'm sorry. What left me the coldest was Friday night. Because at the end of that game, LeBron was on his way to playing, in my view, his greatest finals game ever. Because he was, I predicted at the end of Undisputed on Friday, he would score 38. He had 40.
40.
Yes, interestingly enough, that's the best game that he played in the series by far, and they lost that game. But somehow he gets the MVP, and it's because LeBron James' fanboys in the media started to headhunt AD after AD had that quote-unquote poor performance in Game 3, which really was about being foul-ridden. But every other game, AD was their best player by far. But they were waiting for the weak moment that he had in the series so that they could start publicizing LeBron as the MVP for the finals. Because despite their protestations, the LeBron James contingent in the sports media knew that if the Lakers won this finals and anyone other than LeBron got the finals MVP, that quote-unquote GOAT conversation that exists in their minds would have been over.
They wore their Mamba jerseys. You have to validate them. You have to bring it home. So he drives the ball, if we could see this, at the end of the game, and he should just power it right up through Jimmy Butler and get to the free throw line because he's got a hot hand. He's got to take this shot. This is his shot. This is his time.
Really, Skip?
Yeah, you've got to take that shot.
Four guys that
You've
got
got
wide
to take
open.
that shot, and he kicks it back to Danny Green, the poor scapegoat that Danny Green has always been in his career. Scapegoat in San Antonio and a scapegoat here. And he misses, and you know the rest of the story. They get the offensive rebound. Markieff ends up lobbing it completely out of bounds. That could have put a huge exclamation point. I would have given him a standing ovation if he had gone to the free throw line and made those.
Stop lying, Skip Bayless. Me and you both know damn well that had LeBron James went to the free throw line and made both those free throws, you would have claimed that the referees bailed him out. That's what you would have said, Skip Bayless.
Free throws.
No. See, the thing is that everybody that was taking shots at LeBron at the beginning of the season, now that they can't find anything, they're saying, well, LeBron James, I can live with you taking that shot if you miss it. Well, you live with the fact that he passed it and they missed it. You don't, Skip, you don't base the decision on after you know the outcome saying that was the wrong decision, because there are a lot of armchair quarterbacks, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks that get an opportunity to second guess a head coach.
Okay, I first guessed it on Twitter, and you can look at my timeline. I said, this is his night. This is his game to win. He has to slam the door shut. He's going to get a walk-off or get to the free throw line.
But if you notice LeBron, most of his walk-offs coming what? He's going the opposite.
Absolutely. That's the best point that you're making, Shannon Sharp. Most of LeBron James' walk-offs, he's dribbling left, not to the right. He has no mid-range game dribbling to the right, or at least a very poor mid-range game going to the right. He has to be extremely hot from the outside to even consider a pull-up mid-range jump shot going to the right, because that's not his shot. LeBron likes to go left and then pull up.
You see the shot that he hit in Chicago? It was on the left-hand side. You see the one he hit at Indy. The one he hit against Orlando is going left. The kiss off the bank is against Toronto.
So you're saying he has a weakness?
Skip, everybody has a sweet spot in which they like to get to. At the end of the day, it does not matter. You would have a valid point had they lost this series.
You know, it is interesting. Jordan once said, it was back in 2014, he said, if I were guarding LeBron, I'd just make him go right all day.
Yeah. It's a lot easier said than done. Trust me, Michael Jordan could not guard LeBron James. He couldn't even guard old Magic. Remember, Magic put a triple-double on him on game one, and they had...
Yes, Magic Johnson had one of those 18-point triple-doubles. And one of the greatest forms of folklore is that they had to take Michael off of Magic Johnson and put Pippen on him because Magic was lighting Michael up. Well, over the last 4 games of that series, Michael's defensive metrics against Magic Johnson were better than Scottie Pippen's. This notion that Scottie Pippen just shut down Magic as opposed to what Michael Jordan did is a complete lie. Magic went on to still put up the same numbers over the course of that series. As a matter of fact, I believe he averaged somewhere around 17, 18, maybe 19 points a game and around 12, 13 assists a game with around 8 rebounds. Magic is going to be Magic no matter who you put on him. What Scottie Pippen allowed is for Michael Jordan to be able to concentrate on the offensive end, because you need Michael to give you the 35, 36 points per game in those finals. I believe he averaged somewhere around 31 and 11 assists. Scottie Pippen's offensive output is not as integral as Michael's. But LeBron James fanboys, they love talking about how they had to put Scottie on Magic because Michael couldn't guard Magic. A bunch of nonsense.
Scottie Pippen, who picked him up 94 feet. So if you think Michael Jordan...
And to Michael Jordan's credit, he has fed into this false myth, this folklore about Scottie Pippen shutting down Magic. He even stated that in the Last Dance documentary because Michael knows that Scottie constantly needs to have his ego massage.
LeBron from going anywhere without security, you're sadly mistaken.
Shannon, he would have terrorized him.
No, he
would have trash-talked him into oblivion. He would have just cut him up and spit him out.
Whatever. Skip, this is what I know. We just spit out 4 rings with 3 different teams.
I want to congratulate...
4 rings with 3 different super teams, you mean, right?
You are 4 and 6 in the finals now. You have now currently lost as many finals as Jordan won without losing a single one. Way to go.
About to be 5 and 6.
4 and 6 versus 6 and 0.
About to be 5 and 6.
About to be? Is there a finals tomorrow?
It's easy to talk shit after you've won. To start the process all over again and expect things to go your way like they did in these playoffs, I'll wait to see it. LeBron's history shows us that he normally wins championships in very odd years and in very strange ways. So, I mean, if next year is anywhere near conventional, I do not expect the Lakers to repeat as champions.
In 2021.
Oh,
Let me ask you a question. Look at ask you a question. If Michael Jordan played 15 years, he was 6 and 0. What happened those other 9 years? Did they not play?
The same thing that's happened to LeBron James in the other 13 years of his career. That's what. And keep that in mind. he's counting the Wizard years. If you just count the Bulls years, Michael Jordan won 6 championships in 13 seasons, and that's counting 3 seasons where he basically didn't play. Because in his second season, he was out most of the year with a broken foot. He was retired for an entire year. And then you had another year where he came back with 17 games to play. So he really won 6 championships in 11 seasons. But I mean, people are not going to count it like that. It is what it is. But LeBron James has basically been able to play without interruption. Maybe that's the reason why he has the name of his company called Uninterrupted. He's played 17 years. He's only won 4 championships. I don't understand why Skip Bayless sits there and allows Shannon Sharpe to try to create counter arguments that actually apply to his own guy.
Finals in those years?
Well, 2 of those years he got sent.
I don't know what happened, Skip.
Yep.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to him.
Without that,
So do you know what happened in the 13 years that LeBron James didn't win a championship?
he won 8 straight. You like that?
No, you
Yeah.
Skip. See, that's easy to say.
No,
that's easy to say.
It's just about as factual as you can get.
No.
He owned the whole game. LeBron does not own
Let me ask you a
basketball.
question. In 1980, what was the line? How much do you think bettors were betting that the Soviets would crush the little Americans?
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Whenever Shannon doesn't know what to say, he starts making these ridiculous analogies.
You in a sporting event, you can't say what because Skip, everybody knows you're a
Wait, it got called off. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
not
one?
No, Skip.
Which
when,
one?
When we beat the brakes off.
Oh, you mean the ice hockey?
Yeah.
I was there at Lake Placid. I was sitting in the front row. Yeah.
Skip, you know in sports, you're a sprained ankle, a twisted knee, or a fluke from losing.
Mm-hmm. You were almost a fluke from losing on Friday night. For a second, I thought AD was in big trouble. But he does tend to get a little melodramatic when he goes down with his injuries.
True. Anthony Davis is a big drama queen whenever he gets hit in the face or hit in the leg or something like that.
And that was just melodrama. He was just fine.
Skip, look, I won't. Did you hear what my man said last night? He said Rob Lincoln wants his respect.
I heard.
Absolutely. And you heard me right. I said my man. My man. I love that man like I've never loved a man in history. Me and Savannah, we love that man to death. Skip Bayless, don't you dare speak against him. Watch your mouth with your no top lip having ass. You heard what he said. He wants his respect.
Mogul wants his respect. He said Jeannie wants her respect.
Yeah.
Laker Nation want their respect.
And
I want my damn respect.
damn respect.
Give it to him.
You know, as soon as he said that, I sat back, having covered Jordan all those years, and I thought, I could have never imagined Michael Jordan saying to the media, I want my damn respect.
Because Michael Jordan understood that respect is earned, it's not asked for. You earn your respect, you don't ask for it.
He had it.
Because
That's a manifestation of LeBron James and his Marxist bullshit, that entitlement mentality that pervades liberal blacks. They think that they deserve shit that they haven't earned.
He had it.
they gave Michael Jordan respect when he didn't win anything.
Now, so that's Shannon Sharpe telling lies yet again. The media was calling LeBron James the chosen one when he had never won shit. They were giving him back-to-back MVP awards. Many times when you can make the case that it could have went to another player who was actually winning at the time, that being Kobe or Tim Duncan.
But I got a surprise for you. I got a surprise for you in the show. Hear ye, come one, come all. The king is having a royal ball. And if you can rap so dress fresh, you might win a championship with your Royal Highness. I'm gonna love my day. This is my day.
Did you write that?
Yeah, he must have wrote that silly shit.
It doesn't rhyme.
Yeah, don't worry, don't need it right. Here, Bayless, I'm gonna enjoy this week, and you cannot steal my thunder.
Yep.
I'm coming out here every day with something. You know what? Ain't no telling what.
You know what? Speaking of the Thunder, that reminds me, Kevin Durant didn't play in these fights. He could have. He was cleared to play. Kyrie was cleared to play. What if they both had played with that Brooklyn team? You think you would have been a pushover, a cape?
The only thing stopping that Brooklyn Nets team from winning a championship next year is how much of Kevin Durant is going to return from that Achilles and how willing KD and Kyrie are going to be to implement whatever the system is that Steve Nash is going to try to install. The only thing stopping that team is them.
Walk over them in
The
the
same thing would have happened.
No, I don't think so.
But guess what, Skip? Guess what? They get there.
That team literally has everything. They have bench scoring. They have rebounding. They have interior defense. They have outside shooting with Joe Harris. They should win the championship next year.
Next year.
Yes, they will.
They get the opportunity next year.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people are coming back with their opportunity.
Hey, if you don't mind
Those two guys in Golden State are coming back. They're going to have something to say.
They're going to have to make a big trade. Supposedly, from what I'm hearing, they're going to try to trade for Bradley Beal. To me, they don't need Bradley Beal. They need help on the inside. They should try to trade for Joel Embiid. That's what they should try to do. Or Ben Simmons, one of the two. But if you get Ben Simmons, you're going to have to still get a big man to man the paint. But they need something like that. Either one of those players from Philly will help them greatly, because Ben Simmons will allow Steph Curry to play more off the basketball. It will also allow Steph Curry to know that there's a great defensive player on the floor with him. If they bring in a Joel Embiid, he'll provide, that backline defense that will take pressure off of Draymond Green and off of Klay Thompson and off of Steph defensively.
If you don't mind me asking, who is the overwhelming, the prohibitive favorite from Fox Bet to all these other gambling sites? Who is the prohibitive? I think we something like 15 to 4.
You're talking about, Kawhi's team is your favorite.
They're way down. They about to break.
The Lakers will have to sign someone big in order, in my view, to be the favorites to win the championship next year.
No,
really?
They about to break that thing up like the Jackson 5.
Congratulations, Shannon. I got something for you later also.
Let this sink in for a second. Kawhi Leonard chose Paul George and Patrick Beverly over AD and LeBron.
He did.
And there you go again, still complaining, because that's what you're actually upset about. You're mad that Kawhi Leonard jilted your boy LeBron James, and you feel jilted. You conducting yourself like a groom who got left at the altar by a chick, and come to find out she ended up divorcing the guy who she jilted you for. And you're still upset. Move on. Move forward.
He said, I want to compete against him instead of play with him. And he didn't get to. He didn't get to.
Why not? Did they forfeit the season?
Looking ahead. Cubic zirconia. Thank you.
All right. We will continue.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers, at least in regards to LeBron James' #1 fan and how excited he is about his boo thing finally getting another championship. Once again, brothers, do not be a fan. You end up making a fucking fool of yourself like Shannon Sharp does. But as I've stated in other videos, I have the sneaky suspicion that the connection between LeBron James and Shannon Sharp has to do with a bit more than basketball. There may be a Masonic connection between the two, with Mr. Shannon Sharp acting as an advisor or as a master to LeBron's apprentice when it comes to certain things.